If you're using keyword tools, tracking software like BrightLocal or SEMrush to track your keyword lists month to month, having the right priorities to avoid distractions becomes really important, because sometimes there can be data that's either inconsequential or can misrepresent the reality of the situation, and being able to discern your way through that is important, not just for your ability to continuously craft the right strategy, but when it comes time to present to clients. So in this video, I'm going to talk through some things that I've learned over the years to help you look at these reports, decide what is the most important, what bits of data craft the narrative that we're after, and which things are distractions, and when it comes time to present things to clients, what should we be focused on? So the first thing that's important to bear in mind is that keyword movement totals that they give in these reports do not paint an accurate picture of what's actually going on with your list, and I'll unpack that. So in BrightLocal particularly, it often begins reports that you export giving a totals summary, total gains, total losses. And often, when I've shared entire reports with clients before, people get stuck up on that section. That's the first thing they see in the report. I wish it weren't. And they get kind of glued to that. Oh no, I'm seeing losses here. What's going on? There are three things that I want to talk about to that point of why that bit of data ends up being like, let's just not even care. Let's move past it. It's of no consequence. Number one, some degree of fluctuation is just the game in SEO. You can do literally nothing to a website. And I've tracked some websites where we weren't doing anything to them, old sites of mine. And what do you notice? Even not touching the site for 30 days, certain keywords will go up a couple and some will go down a couple. That's the algorithm changing. That's your competitors doing stuff. And sometimes losing a couple ranks in a keyword means absolutely nothing more than one of your competitors did something cool this month. And for them to go up a little bit meant you had to go down a little bit. The end. There's nothing more to glean from it. It's not a sign that you've done something wrong, etc. Two, related point. If, say, for instance, 4 or 6 different keywords that you're tracking but not actively doing stuff to optimize for, if they each take a -1 or a -2 hit, that could add up to a total of -8 or -12. That's a total that can look scary at a glance in the beginning of the report. But often that occurs alongside the same report that if you looked deeper, you would be seeing keywords that you actually are tracking, actually are optimizing for, have gone up quite a bit. I've seen reports where some of those keywords have shot up 12 ranks per keyword at a time. And that's in the same report with this scary you've lost 8. The third thing there is that BrightLocal in particular tends not to count new rankings as gains, even though we both know they absolutely are gains. And so you end up sometimes where it'll only be showing keywords that you had some rankings for last month, and now you run the report again and they went up even more. But you could have words that you had no rankings for last month that now place somewhere meaningful, but that since they're new, those don't get counted as gains. Well, that's now painting a completely fake picture of what's going on, because it is showing all of our losses and we don't have what are actual gains weighing in against that on this total. In general, I care a heck of a lot more what is going up. Are the things that are going up things that I'm actually optimizing for? Things that I actually made adjustments for and created content for? And how much are they going up? And if the answer is everything going up is stuff that I wanted to go up and it's going up a good amount, I don't really care at all. When I see a couple of random other words on the list that took a couple rank hit, whatever, it's the game. Sometimes that happens because I've put a whole bunch of keywords into a list because in my initial batch of research, some of them I found, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to want to do something with that eventually. And I am kind of curious right now where we rank for that. But that's it. Well, now it's in the ranking report, and those are often the kind of words that, since we're not touching them, can shift up or down a little bit, especially early on in the campaign where we're adding a lot of new content to the site, and that shifts what the site in a big picture sense looks like to Google. And when you're optimizing a lot for one service, sometimes another service can take a minor dip. That's totally normal, not worth being distracted by. I have found over the years that if I got distracted by these X up, Y down totals, it would paint, as I'm kind of getting at here, an unrealistically negative picture of where we actually sit, and kind of robs us of the ability to be proud of actual wins that we are getting because we get focused on inconsequential losses. What should drive how you're gauging the success of what you're doing is Google rewarding specific efforts that you're working toward? If it is, lean into it and put the other stuff aside. So, interpreting the data and sharing that with clients. As my years in this field have gone on, something that's become clearer and clearer to me that separates what ends up being weak SEO from being a really strong SEO effort is being able to observe nuance in the data that evolves what would have been a merely reasonable strategy into a really clever one. And a piece of advice related to that I was given years ago, and as soon as I started following it, immediately noticed that it helped me, was ranking reports are mostly for you, not for your client. Sure, we feel like we have to show a client something, right, to reassure them that their money is being well spent. But a couple counterpoints to that. One, if you've properly set the expectations with them early on, then the client already knows that it's going to take 3 to 6 or possibly more months to reach some of the real milestones to show ROI. And so, yeah, you can show them little snippets of things to be like, hey, look, some of the words we're targeting, here's some meaningful shifts up. We're not yet where phone calls are probably going to be happening a lot, but we're seeing the kind of motion that we're looking for, and it reassures us that in the next couple of months, we probably will be where we want to be. You can show them that kind of thing, sure, but don't feel like you're justifying your job and you have to show them everything every month or else. We're not hiding anything from our clients by not showing them every single piece of data. We need to realize that their time is valuable and they're busy, and what they're really paying us for is to make a plan and execute on it. Ask yourself this: should we be showing them a report that happens to have a couple of inconsequential losses that we could risk them seeing it and then being uneasy about the campaign, when the reality is that same report shows very reassuring gains and all of the things that we're chasing? No, I generally have found it's not worth taking that risk. Show them what matters, not what doesn't. These reports are for refining your strategy first, and for really reporting to anybody else second. When I shifted my mindset to what I could think of as a show the client as little as possible while still painting a truthful picture, everything I'm doing became a lot more efficient. If I see some big gains partway through a month before we had a scheduled meeting where we were going to go over results, I might take a screenshot of that and share it with a client just to paint it like, hey, we were just doing these blog posts and working on these things for this batch of keywords, and check it out. We're seeing some awesome upward motion there. It builds morale with them, first of all, and it helps keep them engaged in what I'm doing, that they can be like, wow, Brian was just doing this stuff and now look what's happening. I had a weird guilt about that earlier in my career where I felt as if not showing them literally every piece of data that I have available to me was somehow like not being transparent, or that to withhold something was being dishonest. And I realize now part of what they're paying me for is the kind of discernment to be able to make those sort of decisions. Quite frankly, to make strategies that 10 years ago I would not have been able to make at all, or wouldn't be able to do as artfully. That's what they're buying. And an extension of that is realizing that what they're paying me to do is interpret the data for them. And that's not me creating or inventing a narrative. That's just me being focused on, this is my plan, and here's how we know that plan is working. And that's the only stuff we need to be focused on right now. So I'll share a story of kind of both ends of this, a story where it did actually distract the client and paint an unrealistically negative picture that ended up resulting in me losing the account over that. And it was when I was working with a personal injury attorney in New York, and we were about 3 or 4 months into the campaign, and I hadn't fully enough set the expectation that this really was going to be at least 6 months because of how incredibly competitive that field is. And I even got too distracted with some of the minor keywords having some losses. Earlier on in my career, I often viewed all losses as concern-worthy, and then I, now looking back, realized that I wasted a lot of time trying to fix problems that I saw And that took away from time that I could have just been doubling down on the stuff that was working. And because I got myself distracted chasing, I need to fix that one keyword that lost 3 ranks, instead of leaning into this keyword that we are targeting has actually gone up 7 ranks in the last 30 days. And if I push it a little bit harder, I could get you phone calls. Well, now when you talk to the client and they're saying, yeah, I'm not really noticing a difference in phone calls, particularly if I, in that instance, didn't project enough confidence about what I was seeing in the report and showed them a report that then really did distract them with, oh, well, why is this keyword going down? And why is that one? Especially where it was a keyword where, like, we already only rank like number 36 for it, and now we rank 38. And they're like, oh, geez, we're losing headway. And I know now we shouldn't even care about that keyword. Because we rank 36 for it, it's irrelevant. And we're never going to get leads from it. We haven't focused on it. Who cares that it went down 2 spots? But the client saw that, and I didn't have the presence of mind like I do today to be able to reframe that and say, guys, this is why we don't need to worry about that. And that can cost an account. Especially, it's a shame. It's one thing if you look back at an account and say, well, yeah, legitimately, I didn't bring it enough and we didn't move the needle enough. And sometimes that happens because there's no guarantee in marketing. But it's worse when you could look back on it and say, we probably objectively were doing just fine in the big picture sense of SEO, and we just simply weren't at the 6-month mark. But I didn't do a good enough job of controlling the narrative of how the campaign was going, and so I lost the account. So that's why this stuff really matters. And on the reverse side of that, I've got other clients that I've worked with that started with a 1-page website. So off the bat, we had way too little content to really rank well. And as we bulked out that content, I focused reports on here's stuff on our ranking report specifically to what we were creating. And this report shows big, meaningful gains in the first 60 days for those keywords. And I only showed them that. And they were thrilled, and they were like, wow, this is so exciting. That excitement that they had with me, you could feel it in the meetings that we had, the kinds of information and stories they shared with me that allowed me to turn around and write better blog posts because of the info that they gave me. Everybody has got high morale about the work that we're doing. That allowed me to feel better about the work that we're doing. The whole thing just was on an upward trend because we stayed focused, and we didn't worry about the fact that even on their report, there were a couple of third wing keywords that went down. Who cares? And they didn't care either. Also bear in mind as a closing thought here, trying to circle back to something I said earlier in this video where I said, don't feel like you have to share everything with a client to justify your job. If the SEO is not working, they'll probably know it in time. It's not like you can really hide that from them anyway. And if it is working, you probably don't need to show them a report to prove that. When they get to the point where their phone is ringing off the hook, they will tell you. I've been in meetings with clients where the meeting opened with them saying, wow, geez, my phone has been going crazy this month. I've even had to tell my receptionist to change the questions that she's asking them to qualify them a little harder so that we're not getting as distracted with some of these calls that aren't going to go anywhere. We can be pickier, basically, is what he's saying, with the calls that we're getting and the leads that we even bother talking to because of how much the phone is ringing. I didn't even have to show him reports in that meeting because it was clear it's working. The client is telling me it's working. So that's just a closing thought of why these reports are for you and less for the client. I hope that's helpful for you guys. Put your questions down below, and if you have comments of your own that you've experienced looking at these reports over the years, I love reading those kinds of bits of feedback from people. And otherwise, I'm going to do a part 2 to this video next, talking about kind of expanding on that when you have the reports, how you're thinking big picture about your campaigns and how much of the success of doing this is your own perception of the success of the campaign and how much that makes or breaks being in this field. So if you liked this video, stay tuned for that one that's next. And otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next one.